Before we start this video, I want to give a massive shout out to the patrons on the screen right now. You guys are truly awesome, and if anyone else wants to support me, I will leave the link in the video description. In 2016, I purchased the famous OnePlus 3 to review, and honestly it was one of the best experiences reviewing a smartphone I have ever had. But less than 1 year later, OnePlus released this, the 3T. Hey guys, my name is Ryan Thomas with Feltech, and thanks to a lovely, wonderful Welshman, Dave West, today I'm going to show you the OnePlus 3T. Should you still buy one? Let's find out. Straight off the bat, I must say, and I do say this every time, it is refreshing to see a 16:9 display with right angled corners. Side bezels are, in my opinion, more than thin enough, and whilst some might call the chin and forehead substantial, I like them. I'm not sure why everyone wants a full front display other than for the looks, and having a screen like this feels crispier, if anything else, due to those sharp corners. A lot of devices would waste the bottom real estate with a single scanner or even nothing at all in the case of the original Pixel, but OnePlus gave remappable navigation buttons at the bottom below the display, which is so nice to have since it frees up room on that marvellous display. And what a display it is. Even 2.5 years later in 2019, OnePlus's 5.5-inch 1080p AMOLED display has aged so well, and the spec sheet doesn't disappoint either for you with GSM Arena as your browser homepage. The screen to body ratio might be pretty low by 2019 standards, but if like me you just don't care about that, you realise just how brilliant this display is. Vibrant and punchy games like Crossy Road and Real Racing allowed the display to show its true colours. Pixel response time, smoothness, fluidity, the lot are all great features, and you can certainly tell it's one of the better features of the OnePlus 3T. However, something I've noticed is this considerable kind of ghosting, which is to do actually with screen burn-in, with AMOLED screen burn-in, that I've noticed a lot on older OnePlus 3 and 3T devices. Of course this can happen with pretty much any display, but I've noticed it substantially more with the 3 and the 3T. You're going to want to be careful with this since it can be hard to make out in photos, and you really have to get close up there with a high resolution camera just to get the photo of it. Of course, another one of the biggest differences between this and a more current smartphone is the use of metal instead of a glass sandwich in the design. Even OnePlus decided to make the switch in the 6, and it certainly feels odd to go back to it. I'm actually a big fan of this era of design. It feels boxy but smooth, and whilst the back can feel a bit slippery, the edges are made so that you have something to grip. The antenna lines are crucial in the device's clean look in my opinion, just the way it breaks up the otherwise boring finish, and the bold camera bump can be a turn off for some, but IMO it just gives the device a bit more depth. Notable inclusions are a USB-C port, granted at 2.0 speeds, a headphone port, dual SIM, the OnePlus Mute toggle switch, dash charge, NFC, and notable omissions are weatherproofing and of course wireless charging. The 3T was never really slow when it was released, sporting a pretty spectacular spec sheet back in the day, including 6 gigs of RAM, a Snapdragon 821 and of course Oxygen OS. It came in 64 or 128GB versions, with the 64 being the one we're featuring today. What all of this means is that not only do you have enough power for everyday tasks such as browsing social media, but you also have the horsepower to play some fairly demanding games as well. It's smooth without a single drop during social media and internet browsing, making it a pretty ideal smartphone for many looking for a workhorse. For around £150 you're getting a brilliant combination of hardware and software. And talking of that software, we're treated to Oxygen OS based on Android 8.0. So not the newest software in the world at all, but what it is stable, and that's important of a phone of this age. It's also secure and getting more security updates as the years go on. I honestly think that Oxygen OS is probably the best version of Android, by a long shot actually. You get that versatility and some extra customization features, but in a very light and well optimized skin. It feels more like a Pixel because it's so clean, but it doesn't feel kind of weighed down. Granted, it doesn't have the massive list of S7 or G5 features that these phones would have this year, but because of OnePlus's Oxygen OS, you do get some added features over the standard Nexus or Pixel devices. Also remember that XDA forums are a thing, and the OnePlus 3 and 3T have loads of custom softwares that you can import onto the phone. I recommend Resurrection Remix or AOKP. When Dave originally sent over the phone, he warned me that the battery life might be a bit pants since it had been used so much, but I'm actually surprised at how well this thing has coped during my testing. The 3400 mAh battery is more than enough for most people to last the entire day, and it happily handles my use case. But just in case it doesn't, or you have a used unit with a majorly deteriorated battery, the dash charging tech is so good that a quick top up at lunch can give you so much more life than any other slower charging tech. Dash Charge does get a lot of praise in the media, but for good reason. It's so fast and convenient. Some of you might complain that there's no wireless charging, but I personally don't care because it's so convenient and, well, it comes with a cool colourful charger in the box, so I'm not going to complain there. Cameras are probably the biggest reason, aside from the displays, to go with older flagships over lower end modern phones. And the 3T is absolutely no exception to this rule. With a great set of specs, even if there are 2 cameras on the whole phone where modern phones would have 2 as a minimum on the rear alone. The 821 means you're shooting UHD up to 30 frames per second along with some slow motion options. The camera app itself is pretty good. It's not quite got the suite of modes that the latest phones have, but you do get raw shooting capabilities and a pretty easy to use manual mode, which is always welcomed. Camera results are, as to be expected, excellent. Now, don't get me wrong, they aren't going to compete with the latest offerings from Huawei or Google or even OnePlus in terms of dynamic range or colour accuracy, but the small software changes made over the years, we're getting better samples than we would have got at launch. The 16 megapixel sensor means that the sharpness is right up there, and honestly it's not bad in a bunch of different shooting conditions, not just good ones. The OIS definitely helps in low light, and whilst it would have been nice to have night shooting modes, I have reason to believe there's probably a ported APK out there. Video is equally impressive, showing so much better stability than at launch and with some great looking UHD video in many different scenarios. Oh, and slow motion is pretty meh by today's standards, but having it there is always appreciated. The selfie camera at 16 megapixels is pretty high quality, even today in 2019. Low light shows the 3T's age, but in good light we are getting some quality photos. Older phones tend to let down a bit in selfies since we have lower resolution selfie cameras, but this is an exception to that rule, a very capable shooter. Wi-Fi and 4G radios seem to be solid, at least here in the UK, so we're not going to be dropping any kind of terrible signals. And honestly that's nice to see after the past few devices I've reviewed. The single bottom firing speaker isn't too bad, it's nowhere near as bad as that Umi I tried the other week, and the thing about it is that it hasn't changed all the way through to the 6T, so you're not really missing out on much. The fingerprint scanner on the bottom is lightning quick, however it is on the front at the bottom that kind of doubles as a home button, and I know a lot of people prefer it on the back or on the side or even in the display these days, but that's not a thing. It's still a fantastic implementation, and it always surprised me back in the day, it still surprises me to this day. The one thing I will say though is I'm not a huge fan of the face unlock. Like yes, it's lightning fast, but it is only using the front facing camera, which a lot of smartphones are doing these days instead of actually adding an array of sensors such as the iPhone or Mate 20 Pro. So in that regard, I am inclined to say don't bother, but I don't know, some people like it. It's just a lot less secure than if you were using an actual biometric authentication method. So that all links back to the main question, should you still buy the OnePlus 3T? And my answer is yes, in pretty much every scenario. These can be picked up for around 150 to maybe £200 if you want a really nice condition one in the 128GB flavour, but you're getting a brilliant screen, some solid specs, really good camera, some good Wi-Fi radios and 4G radios, which is kind of rare to see in a phone of this age, some killer hardware features, including that headphone port, and all packaged up into something that costs around the same as a Mi A2 Lite. And before you guys go crazy, because I always mention that phone, yes, I would take this over the Mi A2 Lite pretty much any day of the week. Anyway guys, that's about it from me. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll give a massive shout out to Dave West for sending me over this phone. I've tried to get through this video as quickly as I can in terms of filming it, but I've kind of wanted to make sure that I get all the good shots, so I think Dave will be happy to have his OnePlus 3T back. Please do subscribe to him, he's awesome. And I want to again thank him for lending me the phone for about a week, maybe 2 weeks. Thank you all so much for watching. Please do like, dislike, comment and subscribe if you're new around here to never miss a video like this one. Also check out my social medias and Discord and Patreon. All links will be in the video description below. A massive shout out to all my patrons. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for supporting me. My name's been Ryan Thomas with Fail Tech. I'll see you on the next video. Peace.